Hey, welcome to another twisted, bent, and exhausted entrepreneur podcast. Sorry, it is. If you'd known what's going on behind the scenes, you'd understand how twisted and bent sometimes we get when it comes to technical issues with, I can't hear you, the voice isn't working, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I forgot to plug something in.
Yeah.
So, hey, my name is Jeff Harrison. I own a company called Swing Point Media, and I'm here with my dear friend and bestie.
Oh,
That's you,
Leslie,
Leslie.
that's me.
Jeez.
It's my turn. Leslie Spore, that's me. I'm awake. I'm watching. I'm paying attention. I'm here now.
If I could get her to turn the TV off in her, she's a news junkie. So
I am.
whatever the news of the day is, that's the difference. Is Leslie, I'm here with you. I don't have anything else going on.
Watch, watch,
I'm
watch,
here.
watch, watch,
Yeah,
watch. Off.
yeah, yeah. You could be hitting some kind of button
No,
that
I
has
turned it
nothing.
off. I
Okay.
turned it off.
Because here's the thing, I can see the reflection in your glasses. So, when you
You
look
know
up a
what I'm
little bit,
watching?
oh, okay, all right.
It was on a
So,
commercial, by the way.
yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. Um, you probably have some kind of device that blocks all the commercials. But so what's going on?
I had a good meeting this morning with Tamsin
Yeah.
in South Africa, which it was 7 a.m. here and about 5 p.m. there. So we had to, I said, I'm getting tired of these 7 a.m. phone calls. Only because BNI is on Tuesdays and I have to be up early for that one. And then tomorrow I got a 6 o'clock meeting. So it's like, oh my goodness sakes, what's going on?
Well, for
But
those of you who are not aware, we live in the Coachella Valley. It's a Southern California desert. And this time of year, here it is in the summer, and it's hot. We have to be like those lizards and snakes and small animals. We get out
yeah,
before it gets hot, and then we go hibernate and then come out at night again. So early is normal. I was out playing pickleball this morning. I was on the court by 6:30, and yeah, I played
it
for
was
2 hours.
warm already. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 88, 89 degrees, but I'd play every day, all day if it was 88, 89 degrees. Of course, when I was
That's
done, I
true.
don't know what the temperature was. It was okay. But anyway, so what's on the docket for today?
Well, I thought we could talk about, are we doing, well, I don't know which one we're doing. We do two a day, two of these podcasts a week. We film them. So are we doing we're doing automation first. Okay. Wasn't sure which one we were going to talk about.
I'm going to try to give her clues, folks. Forgive me. For those of you just listening, what I've done is actually put it on the screen of exactly what we're going to talk about. And so I think, again, she was looking at the TV. She
I
wasn't looking
wasn't.
at the
I wasn't.
screen.
I
Yeah.
swear I wasn't. I sent you a couple of topics for podcasts and I wasn't sure which one we were doing.
We're doing this one. We're doing
Okay,
this
we're
one.
doing how automation of process saves time and money. And you know me, I'm a huge advocate for this. I love the process reengineering part of what I do. I love going into. There's so much low hanging fruit in companies. You know what that means, right? Low hanging fruit.
I usually
Like
work on the stuff
heavy.
that's on the ground. That's how easy it is.
It's so easy, for us because we're used to looking at processes and seeing how do I make this more efficient. And so many companies get, especially solo companies, not solo, I mean small business owners, get locked into what they've been doing because there's no time to re-engineer their own business. I was in that boat, right? I started this business 20 years ago, as we know, and so it wasn't until 5 years ago when my office manager came on board that she took a look at all my forms and documents and the process we were doing and telling me that I was way out of touch with how things are today. And so she redid everything. And one could say she automated all of my forms because now they're all digitally fillable. That you can fill them online. And then she told me how clunky my software was. So I had to go in, and that's her favorite word. This is clunky. This is not efficient. It's clunky. I hate that. So I had to go in and re-engineer my software last year to streamline the processes and improve the functionality and make it a lot more automated. And now we were talking about AI being the way to go to automate even more stuff. So we were going to talk about how automation really does help save time and money today.
Well, let me toss something out, and
Excuse me.
this is something that I heard. They were talking in the conversation I was hearing. It was talking about how automation will help our government and will speed things up. And there was an example of let's call it for sake of conversation. It was a permit to drill for oil, and it could have been for whatever, but in this particular state, that process would take 2 years to go through that process. Okay, so the business applies for this right to do what they want to do on this land. It goes to the state and then to the government. They do all their stuff, and it takes 2 years. Well, as we all know, in 2 years, a lot of things can happen. We can see interest rates go from 2.5% to 7%. It changes the dynamics of that project. It could be done. We see tariffs, whatever. Well, this particular state said, okay, we're going to add automation into it, and it took it down from 2 years to under 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And now that business can go and do its thing, and that project is underway. That's just an example of how much it saves as far as time, making it more efficient. And, without getting on my soapbox here,
get on your soapbox.
I'm dealing with some health things right now, nothing severe, but it's caused me to get involved with our health system. And the things that drive me crazy are when people say, will you do this and we'll get back with touch with you in 30 days. And it's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Or even yesterday when they told me they had done something, and I actually went to the business that they said they had done this with, and they said, we have no record of these people ever requesting this. And it was an ultrasound that they said they'd never requested. And so I called them on it. But the point is, all of this stuff could be automated, and it could be done so much easier and faster and more efficient. And like you said, there's tons of low-hanging fruit. I like to say there's fruit on the ground. Let's pick that up because it is so easy. And you've done that with your business.
Oh, yeah. Not only this business, but as a consultant prior in the aerospace industry. And I want to caution people that when Jeff says, I can go from 2 days to 2 minutes, that sounds fantastical. And I understand that. It is not unique to the oil industry. It is applicable to every single kind of business that's out there. It doesn't matter if you make tacos for a living. It doesn't matter if you are selling bow ties. I mean, literally, there is always a way to improve the automation. And I know people are afraid that jobs are going to be lost because of that. And certain jobs will be replaced by automation for sure. Okay. However, new opportunities will open up in support of that automation.
Yep.
So don't let that scare you as a business owner when you think, oh my gosh, if I automate this stuff, then what do I do? I will tell you that you will never run out of things to do. I've automated so much stuff of my own company, both companies, that I still have. What it does is it frees me up to be able to go and do other creative pursuits. I can design new collateral, like the tips booklets I do, for example. I could do more of those, or I can go pursue new opportunities for new clients, more marketing. I can participate more in-person, face-to-face events. So don't let it, I guess the point I'm trying to make very lengthily is is that a word, lengthily?
It is now.
It is now.
You just entered it into the dictionary.
I just coined it. It is that there will always be something for you to do, but you have to be creative and you have to think about, okay, if I automate this, then what do I do at that time? For example, when we first automated time entry for executive errands, we saved 89% of the time it took to enter time in the database.
Now, wait a second. How did that? Why did that happen? What really? Let's peel back. Let's open the curtain. As I say, open the kimono and tell us why that happened.
Well, what happened was I was getting complaints from employees saying that they were spending all this time entering time and it was redundant. They were having to, let me tell you how the process works. So they go out and they do a task for somebody and they fill out a form. It's a checklist. They check things off. They can handwrite things into it, all kinds of information. So, and when they save that, a client gets a notification that says they've completed a task for them. And the client can see it. We have full transparency. But then they were having to go and re-enter all that same data into another field saying, this is all the stuff that I did, so that they could justify the time that they spent. And they were complaining, just reasonably so, that it was taking them all this time to re-enter the data they just spent time entering.
Mm.
So what we did is we automated. So when they save that form, not only does it notify the client that the task is complete, it automatically creates the time entry and populates all the stuff that they've entered. So they don't have to retype anything, right? And it puts the end time of when they submitted it. So that the timestamp that said I submitted this at 10:30 says that they finished at 10:30 automatically. They just have to back up and put a start time and the total amount of hours. So that, and they do that, I know one would say, well, why don't you just put the start time in also? Well, it's because they have to account for drive time. So they back it up, set in the time, and then just put, I worked 1.0 hours and save it. And literally it takes them seconds to save their time entry compared to having to manually re-enter all of that data. And that's just one thing that we've automated. So 89% of their time, what do they do with that? Well, that gives them 89% more, that percentage of more time to go do client activities or handle an additional client or take on more responsibilities and tasks. So it was value added for the client for the same reason, right? The less time they spend doing admin, the more they can do for actual stuff.
So this is 89% per customer that they interact, or per location interact with, correct?
Yeah, 89% savings per client entry. 89. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's a lot of time. Yeah. And then they quit complaining about all the time they were spending that wasn't billable, that they couldn't bill the client for. That was just, this is just admin time that I'm adding on here. And so when we saved that, that problem went away. And that's just a simple one. That's not even getting into AI. That's just an automation of a process.
Yeah. I think when I think about it, it's saving, let's call it 90%. 90% of my time is saved every time I do this with a client. Wow. That means to me, it means now I'm, as you said, saves time and money. Did it mean, Leslie, that your employees then, it took them 89%, because they saved that 89%, does it mean they could take on more clients than they were taking on? Or did they end their day sooner? What was the case in that?
All of those. So all of those, because they had more free time to work for clients or be more thorough. We're always thorough, but to be even more thorough, more attention to detail, because they weren't rushed. Not that they ever rushed. I don't want to imply that, but not that they had to think in the back of their head, oh, I still have to enter all this again to do, because they do the activity reports, is what we call the task completion forms. They do those real time while they're at the client house. So, but they save and wait to do the time till the end of the day so they can see everything they did for the day and make sure they apply their time properly. So they knew before that they had to schedule some time at the end of the day just to do all that data entry again. And now they don't have to do that. It's all gone.
Wow, yeah. That's great.
And when I say 89%, now remember, say it took them an hour before to do it, and now it takes them 90% less of an hour. So maybe it takes them 5 minutes or whatever that works out to be. That's a huge savings. I mean, it really is a big savings. And so when I tell people that when they implement Essential Elements, our software system, that I can save them a minimum of 20 hours a week, because that's what the basic version did. Now with this new and improved version, they save way more than that. I probably spend 2 hours a week, maybe monitoring the health of my business, because I work on my business, not in it. Right? Now, that's different for somebody who does the work and tries to manage the business. I have people that do the work, because when I got my first client, I hired somebody, which I know is crazy because nobody does that. But I wanted to create a business. I wasn't there to create a job for myself. And creating a job for yourself is a noble thing to do. I mean, there's nothing at all wrong with that. It does require a different mental process about how you divide up the administrative part of the business and how you do the work part of the business, because obviously you only get paid for the work part, right? And the administrative part dilutes your value for the billable time. So say you, just for easy numbers, say you work for a client for an hour and you spend a half an hour doing admin in support of that client. Now you're really only getting paid for half an hour.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, for easy math. So the goal is then to automate and simplify as much of the admin as possible, so that the amount of billable time increases. Right?
Correct.
And the I know I'm clicking something in your brain because I can see it in your eyes. You're going, oh, I do this. I shouldn't do this. I can see it in your eyes. But I see so many people that they'll spend 40 hours a week trying to work for clients on their own because they haven't hired any help. And then another 40 hours a week at night trying to do all the administrative functions. And on top of that, so much of what people do in the admin portion of their business is redundant, right? There's redundant activities, just like us having to retype in all the time, instead of making it so that you have a system that will automatically do that for you. It's crazy what I see people do all the time. It's like, oh my gosh, I could save you so much time. And, and what sometimes puts people off is the short-sightedness when it comes to this automation. And maybe you see this too with AI. The short-sightedness comes in on the initial cost to set this stuff up. There is always a setup cost associated with automation of any kind, whether they implement our software system or whether they have you design AI tools for them. There is some setup cost. The savings is in the elimination of the non-recurring activities and the amount of billable time they now have available. Right? So
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just want to finish this thought. So it's even true in things like retail, right? Because in retail, you're standing behind a counter and people are shopping and they're picking up things to buy, and you say, how can I help you? And they always say, I'm just looking. And then you go away and then they pick what they want and they come to the cash register and you process that out. But at night, you still have to process the receipts and manage your inventory and manage your hours, and how are you, deal with your accountant and deal with your marketing and your social media. And there's still all that same stuff to do, whether you're in service charging by hours or whether you're in manufacturing or retail and selling widgets. It doesn't make any difference. Automation applies to everybody. I'm sorry. Now I'm off my soapbox.
No, I totally agree with what you're saying. It makes so much sense. And what I wanted to toss out there, especially since I play in AI heavily and have for the last 3 years so much and so many times, less and less every day, that people have never heard of the things like ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok or whatever. And now more and more people are understanding, because we're almost past that early adopter phase where only the geeks like myself would get involved in it. And so we have the early implementers, if you will, is they don't know enough to ask questions to try to find out more, because they don't even know what they don't know. And in the world of psychology, we call it, the first stage of learning is, they're incompetent, and they're uneducated. They're not exposed to it. So that's the first stage. Like, they don't even know what they don't know. It's not a bad thing. It just is what it is. And so with like yourself, because now you're trying to move them, let's say, from stage 1 to stage 2, which is competent incompetency. And now they know what they don't know, right?
Right.
You're pointing this out. They've sometimes like, whoa, but the way we're doing it is not costing us anything. Well, that's not true. It's
Oh,
costing
no.
you, like you said, 89% on that one task. And now you said, now I went from a half an hour of billable to 55 minutes. Well,
Right.
that's really good, because now you're getting paid for your time.
I
Because some
know.
people, say, well, I charge this much. I said, oh, really? Well, how long does it take you to do this? And they'll tell me, I'm like, well, so you're making $4 an hour.
Yeah.
But if we automate it, you can make $70 an hour.
Right.
Okay. So it really doesn't cost you anything. It's
Right.
really making you money.
Right. I would not argue. Well, I like to argue. So I should have been a lawyer. Really, I should have been a lawyer. But what I'm going to say is that the fact of people don't know what they don't know is common across all of this. Even in what I teach in business fundamentals, they don't even know what to ask me. Right. So usually the first thing I do is tell me how you do business. Right. Tell me how you're doing it. And then how does this process work? And then how much time does it take you to do this? I'm sure those are the exact same questions you ask for AI automation, is exactly the same. And so, because we have to understand where they are today in order to help them get to tomorrow. So that's when I say re-engineer the business process. That's what I'm doing. I'm taking your existing business process and I'm trying to figure out how I can simplify that so that you can do it faster, better, without redundancy. And I know that, like I said, people don't always have the forethought or the experience, I guess, to understand how much things are costing them. I might have used this example in the past, but let me just throw this out there. It's not exactly automation, but kind of, just as a way to look at how you can save money. Have I used the example about the people that would come in and clock in and then stand around and talk for a few minutes? Have I talked about that before?
You have, but not on this particular podcast segment. So
Okay.
tell us about it.
Okay. So I used to work as a consultant in this manufacturing company back in Newark, New Jersey, of all places. They were they were making circuit breakers for nuclear submarines. That's what they used to make. It was really pretty cool. And the people would on the manufacturing floor would come and they'd clock in the morning, and they'd get their coffee, and then they'd pick up a donut or a bagel, and then they would stand around and chit chat for about 10 or 15 minutes. And I went to the operations manager and I said, this has to stop. And they're like, well, it's just a few minutes it's not that big a deal. It's just a few minutes. So I went out there and counted how many people were doing it, times that 15 minutes, times their overhead rate burdened, right? Which at that time was like $40 or $50 an hour. And it turned out it was costing them, say it was 20 people, that's 4 hours, right? Times 15 minutes, 20 people in 15 minutes is 4 hours, times $50 an hour is costing them $200. Is that right? And that's simple math again, because it was more people and all that. But so it was $200 for them to stand there and chit chat and have their coffee, when they should have been already at work, because they had already clocked in. They should have already been at work. And when I laid it out for him like that, he was like, oh, okay, then, because then it's times 5 days. So now you've got $1,000 times 4 weeks. So now you've got $4,000 times 52 weeks, you got 5,200. I mean, it just exponentially gets worse. And so just by cutting down that chit chat time and say, let's just get to work. And then when you have your break, you can you can do that then. It saved them, over $5,000 a year in lost.
$52,000.
Or excuse me, I did the math wrong. Yeah, $52,000. No, that'd be
Yeah,
12. No,
$1,000 a
a
week
week.
times 52 weeks is
52,000. That's
52,000.
right. I can't even do simple math today. So it
She's
would be
twisted and bent.
and exhausted, honestly. So $52,000 a year in lost productivity, right? That's significant money on anybody's budget, right? That's almost, in those days, that's almost a whole nother body. That's a whole man year of time, right? Because they're paying probably around $50,000 a year for those workers, maybe, might have been less. So it's at least a man year. It could be 2 man years. And that is significant.
Well, it's no different, Leslie, than somebody at their home that has a drippy faucet and they don't think of it because it's just one drip at a time. But then they get their bill and it's, for their water, and it's 20 to 30% higher than it should be.
Right.
And then you do that times the year and they're like, holy cow, I paid for 2 extra months of water this year because I didn't put a 30-cent washer in there to stop it from dripping.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so, and the business owners that I deal with, most of them, well, all of them, don't really understand this principle. It's not that they are ignorant. It's not that they're bad people. It's that this is part of understanding how business operates that you need so that you can make better decisions. And
well,
and automation is the same thing.
Isn't there some kind of this emotional attachment that this is their business, and this is the beauty of what you did for years, and you still do this, and this is what we're doing, is having someone come in as a consultant without any skin in the game to look at things from a whole different perspective. Right. And, they just saw it as, it's 10 or 15 minutes, no big deal. This keeps the morale up and away we go. You saw it as, oh my gosh, you're leaking 1 to 2 men salaries a year by doing this donut thing.
Yeah.
And they did.
Crazy.
And the other thing is you didn't figure in is who's paying for those freaking donuts and coffee?
Yeah, I don't know.
Right. I'm sure in your report you did figure that in, but so let's talk about some of the things that we just take for granted. And we don't think it can be automated. And the first one I'm going to share with is automation of proposals. I'll give you a little quick story and then I'm going to turn it back over to you because you're on a roll this morning. And I met with a gentleman and he said, I have a stack of business cards of people who have asked me to give him proposals for doing business, to pay him to do business with him. And he said, I hate doing proposals. So there's like 150 of these that are not done. Right. And in my head, I'm like, wow, this is that fruit on the ground. This is the low hanging fruit you're talking about, because that process could be automated. And here's the reason. Here's the one thing and then I'm going to turn over to you is, here's the one thing I want you to think about when it comes to automation. If it is something you're doing consistently and it's the same redundant processes, then it can be automated. And in this situation, every one of the proposals are almost identical with the exception of the name of the business they're going to be doing business with. That's it. Like, oh my gosh, that could be done. And now all of a sudden that could capture, let's just say he was only 25% successful. Do the math, 25% of 150, and then multiply that, because these are monthly reoccurring customers. It could literally 2 or 3x his business, but he's not doing it because he hates proposals. So there's a spot where automating that process where it's like, hey, yes, you want to be a client. I'm going to send you a link. You click that link. It fills in all the questions that you need. And then for the proposal, once it's gathered, and you mentioned this earlier, it then auto-populates the next step, which is, okay, billing. It goes automatically to billing. It goes automatically to, if it's a sales team, if it's a writing team, whatever it is, it's like having something that that separates all that activity from the one form. So keep that in mind. Is like the first thing that defines automation is it something you're having to do? Are there repetitive tasks you have to do over and over and over again? That's your first clue.
Right. When you see me turn over here to write notes, it's because you've triggered in me something I want to automate. So
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's the redundant tasks that are ripe for automation. Oh, we're doing a lot of fruit analogy today. But the don't make a dad joke. I know you were going to.
I'm not going to say it. I'm not saying a thing.
You're gonna. I can see it.
I had nothing.
But those are the easy things. Those are the things that you want to automate. And in his case, because I know who you're talking about, in his case, all his proposals are the same. So it's super easy. In my case, which I would like you to automate some of my proposal stuff as well, because I really do two kinds of proposals, and I'll get into that in a second. But anything that's redundant and the same over and over and over again is really and truly ripe for automation. And that's the stuff that we want business owners to be looking at their, do an honest evaluation. I often recommend doing a time study. What are you spending your time on? And do it for a week and really be honest in what you're spending your time on. If you're wasting it on Pinterest, then by all means, write down you're wasting it on Pinterest. But if when you're actually working, write down the things you do over and over again, particularly the stuff that is administrative, particularly that stuff, because that's your quickest bang for your buck. If you can automate for example, I'll give you some more examples. So I told you I redid my software last year, right? And so we automated, my people were spending quite a bit of time on Sunday nights trying to figure out what their workload was for the following week, because they have to go figure out what tasks do I have to do, what homes do I need to go visit, what proposals do I need to get quotes on and do property walks on, who's coming in and who's leaving. They have to figure out all of that, right? And they would go report. We had reports for all of it, and they would go report by report and then consolidate it and figure it out. Now they have a dashboard. So when they open up the system, there's a dashboard telling them all of that right in front of them. They don't even they can pull up the individual reports if they want, but they don't have to, right? And further, it's only telling them as far as tasks and proposals, it's telling them what's due or past due to be done, so that they're not having to look at everything. They're looking at what's critical. So, and then if they say, okay, I'm going to house A this week, what other tasks are there for this that I can proactively do? I don't have to wait till they're past due. I can proactively do these. So I'm still quantifying that time savings, but it is considerable, and they can do it first thing Monday morning instead of on Sunday night, which doesn't cut into their weekend then, because it's really important to me that my people work super hard and I want them to have their personal time off. I don't want them to be thinking about work, or they're very dedicated, everybody. And because we're in a customer service based industry, they really want to make sure their clients are taken care of. And we do get emails from clients day and night. So they kind of keep an eye on that, and they want to address them as quickly as possible. So they're anxious to get to it, but I still want to make sure that they have enough automation that they don't have to think about it on off hours, if that makes sense. Right?
Yeah, it makes total sense.
I got lost on proposals, didn't I?
That's okay. That's okay. So we're just talking about automation, and that the fact that, hey, if you notice that you're doing things over and over, repetitive tasks, those are opportunities. And we're saying for automation, and we're saying proposal is one of them. Another one is automation of intake forms. And this is I call it onboarding, but it's intake forms. So as an example, let's take that proposal. That's the first part of it. And now what happens is when it's filled out, it acts as a trigger to then say, okay, they filled out the proposal. They've signed on it. As soon as they sign on and submit it, it triggers the next action, which says, okay, let me gather all the information. In your case, what's the, how many, bedroom, blah, blah, whatever their schedule, whatever the question they have, you would ask them to ask those questions. So that also could be automated because one triggers the other. And that is something we've done with all of our customers. And so it takes that process and said, hey, you want to do business. Here's a proposal. You fill it out. As soon as you sign it, it takes you right to the intake form. It makes it so much more efficient and effective for our business, but also convenient for our customers because they're not waiting for me or someone on my staff to see that and then send them another form. No, it's just automated.
Right. And that's exactly what you're looking for. Right. I mean, my wheels are turning too, because I get, like yesterday, we have a new opportunity with a client in La Quinta. And so the first thing was, tell me about your business. Well, I write the same email over and over and over again. There's slight variations, but as a rule, it's the same email. Right. And so that could be automated. And then we have a client profile form. And so when they sign up, they have to fill out this form with all those same questions, those questions. And the other form they have is a security form that says we're allowed to be on the property and the payment information. Those two could be incorporated into the profile form, right?
Absolutely.
And then they would have everything in one place instead of getting 3 forms to fill out, and do it all at one time. Right. And then I wouldn't have to remind them, hey, you forgot this one or you forgot that one. Right. So I can, even for me, I'm saying, oh, there's opportunity. I need to do this. Right. So, but the thing is that when you have your own business, you need to look at what's redundant. How do I automate this? And everybody has some kind of intake form. Right. So no matter who you are, you're trying to figure out if you're going to if you're going to onboard clients or onboard employees. That's another place where you could, we have the I-9 that has to be filled out here. And we have we have a contract they have to sign to work with us. And we have, what else do they have to fill out? Something else. And so all of that stuff they're all digital fillable, but they could be automated to be a form that you fill out and send back all of it at once, and why not? That's totally doable.
Yeah, and you could even take that to the point, if you haven't already, is when someone fills out the forms and they've completed them, there might be a time element in that. Okay, so let's say, for instance, you have a new employee coming aboard, and you're going to give them 24 hours to fill out the forms, and if not, they get a reminder. And then also you get a reminder that Jeff Harrison hasn't finished filling out his forms, and these are the forms he's done. So now it could trigger the next thing, which is you are sending an email that's automated to Jeff Harrison, say, Jeff, thanks for filling out the forms. We notice you're still missing. And then, of course, it would pull that information from your data and say, we notice you haven't filled out your I-9 form. Please get that done by today. If you have any questions, please let us know. And all of that is automated. And the only time you would ever get involved is if it has some failure points. Like if it goes past that 24 hours, now the business owner would say, okay, we have to have this done. Right. But up to that point, it could all be automated.
Exactly. And you said something and it triggered something in my brain, and then I lost it again. As usual, this is something we do every podcast. I start and forget things.
She was writing things down. Now she's not. She's dependent on just memory.
Know. Oh, that's bad. What was I going to say about that? I don't know. It'll come back. But but for sure, it's like DocuSign. That's what I was going to say, is that DocuSign is the same way. When I send a contract or a proposal to a client and say, this is ready for your review and signature, I get a notification that they received it, and I get a notification when they send it back. But I also get a reminder notification, they do and I do, that says, hey, you haven't done this yet. And so it's the same logic as DocuSign.
Absolutely.
So any of you who are listening that are familiar using that tool will recognize the process. It's easy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're talking about how automation of processes save time and money. We talked about redundancy of processes, redundancy of activities, the repetitive things that you're doing, and we talked about proposal intake forms. The other one, and this is kind of putting a ribbon on this because workflows for business.
Mhm.
And I'll use what we've already talked about as an example. Let's say, for instance, your proposal is at the beginning of the workflow. And I want you to think of workflow. If you're not familiar with the workflow, it's like an assembly line of what's
Mhm.
going on. And when one thing happens, it goes to the next person or the next process in that assembly line. So in
Right.
this case, it was the proposal. The proposal was the first thing in this system that's automatic, this workflow is set up. When it's done, it triggers the next action, which is the intake form, which then could trigger the next action, which is now, it could be, quite honestly, it could be assigning the task to the right people. Like in Leslie's case, she's got different people to take care of different homes, and it just automatically assigns it to, okay, this one's going to Donna and this one's going to John. And that could be that workflow process. And again, all of this is done automatically
Right.
and is triggered by that first action, which is the proposal.
Right. That's true. And workflow can also apply in different ways. Our dashboards I was talking about is a workflow, right?
Absolutely.
They're laid out in a logical sequence based on how they use the data in our system, right? And then the menu also used to be all down one side, right? As typical the old days of how you did a menu. Now they're across the top and there's a tab, and those are arranged by how they do their work, so that it makes logical sense to them. They pull down this menu and everything they do under client interface is there, and everything they do under time entry, because you can do it manually, you can do it automated, you can do, there's several different things you can do there. And then their management by exception reports, what's past due, what's, blah, blah, blah. They have those in a separate menu. So everything is laid out in a workflow from how they actually use the system. How do they use the data? I tease them all the time. We're in a customer service business and we have great clients and we take good care of them, but we're really a data management company, if you think about it, right? Because we have schedules, we have tasks, we have quotes, we have finance pieces, we have all this stuff that has to be, who's active, who's not active, all these exceptions and all these things, all this admin that has to be managed. And my employees are managing all of that data every day. There is no way, absolutely no way, that we could be as big as we are without this automation, right? No way.
Absolutely.
And so now, right now, even though my workflows are defined and we have the dashboard, we don't have well, I do have the triggers in there for some places. Like when they do the activity report, automatically takes them to the time entry. They automatically, there are things that happen. If they complete something, it automatically moves it to the completed file. They don't have to go move it. They don't have to do anything. If a client declines a project, it automatically closes it out and puts it in the archive. So we have a lot of that automation of process where things move. If we put in a schedule, it automatically puts it on the calendar. If we put in a property walk, it automatically puts it on the calendar. Or the job is starting and finishing on a certain day, it automatically puts it on the calendar, so that we don't have, because that was another thing we were doing as a redundant activity, was we had an external calendar. And so we would put all this schedules and tasks and things in our database and then go out and re-put it on the calendar. That's crazy. That's just craziness. I know. Exactly. Well, don't do a loser sign, because there's a lot of people that still do that.
I was going to make an S. I was making an S sign, but yeah.
Can't
Well,
do that with your fingers.
Yeah, I can't do that. Well, we're talking about like the internal workings of a business, but another example of a workflow. And I remember years ago, before we really got automation into marketing, especially social media marketing, there used to be a day where the only social platform we had was Facebook and YouTube. That was it. And so we really lead a lot of information. Well, now we have a dozen different platforms. And I remember a friend of mine, I'd be sitting here and all of a sudden he has a post show up on his Facebook page. That's automation. He used, as Leslie said, a calendar and scheduled it to go out at a certain time. And so it would do whatever he asked it to do at a certain time while he's doing something totally different. He was in a real live event speaking to real people while this was happening automatically. And it gave him this omnipresence, like, geez, you just seem to be everywhere. That's what automation can do for you, gang. It can allow you to be in places where before, or your competitors are not taking care of your customers or future customers.
My newsletters do the same thing. They're all automated to go out, automatically. Obviously, that's what automated means. I mean, I'm at the BNI meeting when they get published every week. They're already written, they're already formatted, they're already set for publishing, and they go out. Yeah. Same with ads. We set up the ads and schedule them, and they go out when they're supposed to. So there's a lot. Those are the simple automations. That technology's been around for a long time. What we're talking about here is looking at your business as a whole and saying, what's redundant? What do I not need to do at all? Can I get rid of it? Right? How can I streamline my business so I'm spending more time on it rather than in it? And how do I save administrative time so that my wages go up? Because the less admin you do, the more money you make, period. Mm-hmm. It's one of the reasons AI is so popular, because it saves immense amount of time. So the more you save time, the more your value goes up.
Yeah, even at this point, we're not really talking about AI. We're talking about software or connections like, hey, I'm using like a Google spreadsheet or Airtable or Slack PDF. Or something of nature, to make these things happen. And it's using maybe tools like Zapier that says, hey, I'm going to connect this one tool to another tool so they can talk to each other, because right now they don't. One speaks Spanish, the other speaks Hungarian. Zapier makes that translation so they work together. And, I want you to take what we've talked about today and think, wait a second. Each part of my department, each part of my business doesn't have to work in its own silo. Because I remember, and just real quickly, there's a client of ours who's been a client for quite some time now. And I was starting to look into what happened when someone said yes, because they build custom items. And I started looking at this, and it's about a 40 to 45 day process from the time the client says yes to the time they deliver the product. And so I started asking all of the things that Leslie talked about at the beginning of, like, really what happens. And it is so heavily intense as far as the workers communicating with the clients, or they get busy, and they're all of this stuff. So we custom built a workflow for them that communicated with the people that are supposed to, like your dashboard. Everybody knew what the next step was. And it made things so much easier for them. And it also improved customer satisfaction, because now the customer, every time it went to a new step, the customer automatically got a little reminder saying, hey, I just want to let you know, we're still working on your job. This is what's happened. We're excited. We're now moving on to this next step. It's just letting people know that you weren't there just for the transaction. And this can all be automated. So, we could huge. Go on and on. So those are some of the things. And the last thing is reducing apps or consolidating for increased time and savings. You've been a wizard at that. Like, you could have cobbled together 10 different apps to get you what you want to put together. But you said, forget about it. I'm just going to make my own thing.
Right. Yeah. And even though there's an app for everything, I mean, I just did a newsletter about how apps don't replace customer service, because they don't. They think they do. Sometimes people think they do, but they really don't. That touch, it's that touch interaction whether it's just a Zoom meeting or whether it's in person, is really, really important. But in the beginning, when I first started Executive Errands in 2006, believe it or not, all that time ago, when we started building the software right away, because I realized that the admin was going to be horrendous for this kind of a business. I mean, I didn't even have clients yet. We started building the software. And so it did a very minimal amount of things. It just tracked time and told me when to rebuild people. And over the years, we've added more and more features. But we got to a point where I was waking up in the middle of the night going, oh my God, I don't want to forget to do this for so-and-so, and don't forget to do that for somebody else. And so I went out and I found an app, which shall remain nameless because it's still in operation today, for tracking projects and tasks. And we implemented that. So that was one more. I had my system, I had an external calendar, and now I had this app for tracking tasks. And then we also had an app for taking photos. So we had 4 or 5 apps that we were using to run, plus our financial software. So we were multiple things to run the business. Well, one day, and I, at the risk of sounding like I'm bragging, and I don't mean to, but I know it's going to sound that way, I have the ability to see how software hangs together. Remember those pictures that are all dots and you look at them and your eyes get kind of hazy and you can see there's a picture in there? Well, when I look at a software system or an app, I can see how the programmers put it together. I can just see it. So what I did was I saw, after using the task management app for a while, I saw how it hung together. So I took that logic, or very similar logic, and I put it into my system so that we could track tasks and schedules in my own system, right? So that eliminated that app. And now we have the calendar in the system. So we eliminated that need for an external calendar and the redundancy of having to enter stuff in my database and on the calendar. So one of the things automation can do for you is reduce the amount of external systems that you're using. Because by consolidating those, you save immense amount of time and aggravation, and your training goes down, right? How many times has somebody here that's watching this had to train a new hire on how to use all these different applications? I hear this a lot when I'm doing demos of my software. People are like, I have all these apps and I just really want to slim this down. And it's easy to do. We can automate it. And because software or AI can do anything you want, which a lot of people don't believe, but it can do anything you want. I've not run up against a situation yet where I couldn't bend software to my will, right? I have had programmers, because I don't program, I just spec it out. I have had yeah. So I have had programmers tell me, I've never done this before, but I give it a shot. And then they're like, oh, I learned so much from doing that, because they didn't even know they could do what I asked them to do. But when you understand, what I see in my mind is, rows and columns and if this, then that. And I see all that and I'm like, this is totally doable. Or I take my existing system and I say, okay, all this data lives in there. I've got, like, I'll give you an example. This is really a simple example, but when I had somebody who went and was in the hospital for a certain amount of time. So I was out doing her clients for her. And I realized that when I was planning my time, I didn't know who lived where. So I couldn't plan an efficient workday because I didn't have visibility for myself of which community they were in, or what part of town they were in, or what part of the desert they were in, or whatever. Well, all that data lives in the system. When I put in the clients, we put in their address and the community they live in, if they're in a community. So it wasn't rocket science to go back and say to my IT people, okay, pick up the street address and pick up the community and sort by community so I can plan my time efficiently. So I can do all the properties in one location at a time, right? The data is already in there. So it's just a matter of calling that information and and returning. It's called returning it. Returning it when I run the report, showing it on the report so that I know where to go. But nobody had ever told me. The people that work for me had never said, "This is a pain in the ass." They never said, "I wish I knew where these people were." Crazy. So one of the questions I always ask when I'm helping somebody, when I'm helping their business is, if you could have anything you wanted to make your job easier, what would it be? Sometimes they don't think big enough, but we get them started, because they always say, always without fail, well, I want something, but I know you can't do it. And I said, try me, because I can do anything. And I say that with humility. You can do anything. If you have somebody who understands logic and you have somebody who understands programming, you can do anything. Seriously. Look at the stuff that you do. You do amazing, incredible things that inspire me every single day. You send me, get this, guys, he'll send me a video and say, look at this. And I've said, that's a human being. And he goes, no, it's not. It's AI. And I'm like, no, I know that person. That's exactly their mannerisms, exactly the way they talk. The mouth syncs up, because I can spot AI a mile away. And I'm like, no, that is not. And he goes, yes, it is. And that's how fast stuff is changing. In my meeting with Tamsin this morning, I was telling you, I talked to her this morning, my marketing person in South Africa. She said that social media just this week changed their advertising algorithms.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, what we were doing in November, December, and what we have to do now is completely different. And that's only 6 months, right? So this, and you know this better than anybody, the speed with which quality enhancements are coming for various different automation opportunities is mind-boggling. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. And
I mean, you keep up, and I'm like, whoa.
It's one of those things. I had a conversation with somebody out of Chicago yesterday, and he does what I do in Chicago. And he said, how do you keep up? I said, well, here's what I try to use as a filter. I said, I used to chase those shiny objects. So this is a new thing. This is a new thing. And I said, but what I do now is I said, I use as my North Star is human behavior. And if it doesn't align with what we do as humans in the whole process, then I just typically will set it aside, or it's not making it better. He says, oh my gosh, I never thought of that, human behavior, because we all have, like as an example, before we make a buying decision of any size, we want to start researching. Well, so I'm going to start making the content, video, social media, whatever, that those people will naturally want to start asking questions of. Like if I were saying, okay, I wanted to build an app in AI to do X, Y, and Z, what questions would those people actually ask to get to that point? And, it's like, as you said, you can kind of see how that all hangs together with automation. You have to look at the flow of how people, the path they'll go on.
Their thought process. Yeah,
exactly. And not just their thought process, but also the behaviors, their psychographics, their fears, their concerns.
I love that. That's the new buzzword, psychographics.
Yeah, it's been around forever. But yeah, well, it's only because, quite frankly, is because up until just recently, a marketing company or a business could not afford to run the psychographics of their customers. It was too expensive and it took too long. We now have broken through that veil, if you will, and now we can do those things, which gives us greater insight, and it makes our content so much better. It makes our efforts so much better. But I'm getting off topic here, but the idea is, yes, all of this can reduce, like you said, hey, why would I not just build that and integrate it into my own program instead of have, bolt on this app that kind of does what I want it to do. And we did the same thing. We jettisoned a piece of software that went up like 5x overnight, literally 5x overnight. And nothing different changed. They just decided to go 5x. And so I looked at it and said, we can just build this. We'll build our own. So we built it, and now it's part of our operator or workflow, if you will, that it does everything this other thing used to do. And it probably cost me $500 to build it, but I'm saving $300 a month every month from this point on, and it's mine. I'm not
Right.
waiting for an update. And that's what you do with your stuff. And that's
Right.
what you can do with your automation stuff.
You're talking to the crowd now, right? Their
Yeah,
automation stuff.
yeah,
Okay.
their automation stuff. Yeah.
I was going to wrap it up with one last thought, but again, it's escaped me. So you just go right ahead and I'll think about it for a minute.
Well, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and wrap up. So today we were talking about how automation of processes save times and money. We've given you tons of example why you should do that. First of all, the first thing you should do is try to step outside of yourself and say, "Hey, what's going on in my business? What are the things that are redundant?" For those of you who may say, "I'm not sure how to do this," I'm putting Leslie's email up there, my email up there. And because we both do this type of consultancy, we can certainly help you. And it's not free, but email us and say, "Hey, here's our situation. Can you help with this?" There are certain things that, as an example, I have small businesses. Leslie has the ability to help, corporate businesses, hundreds of, we have hundreds or thousands of employees, and can help save you. Like that whole example of the 15-minute coffee and donuts and how much it actually costs a company. She can help you do that type of thing. So our information is on the screen, lspore@errandsforyou.com or jeff@swingpointmedia.com. She's going to tell me I've got the wrong email address up there or something, I'm sure. But
Yeah,
that's the one it came to me. That's your email address.
That one works to get to me, but I really want the Concierge Business Solutions one up there.
So what's that one, Leslie?
It's still lspore@conciergebusinesssolutions.com, because that's my business for doing this business fundamentals, education and training, the software, all of that stuff. That's where my heart is. Okay. I absolutely love helping Concierge Business Solutions. There's 3 S's together. He's going to do it again. And there's an S at the end. It's kind of long. Maybe I should change that. Yes, that's the one. So sorry. It's just that L-Sport Executive.
You guys are so lucky, because when you turn this off, Leslie goes away. She's still going to be here with me. I still got to deal with this. So
this is
lucky
right.
You.
Yeah.
No, lucky me too.
The errands for you is a good email. I always get those as well, but that's for executive errands. And today we're representing Concierge Business Solutions and business consulting and education and training and mentorship and coaching. And that's really where my heart is. It has been my heart for 30 years. I mean, I absolutely love to help business owners. And I know you do too. When you should see how excited he gets when he automates something for somebody. He calls me or texts me and says, look at this. You won't believe this. It's so exciting. And he really is. And I try to do I do this exactly the same thing, but from a business perspective. He's working in business, but he's strictly digital automation, right? Would you say that's true?
Yeah, AI automation. Yep.
AI automation.
Yep.
And I'm more about how to run your business and how to find the happy path through your business and try to make sure that you're being as efficient and profitable as possible, because again, the more time you save in admin, the more money you make. So between the two of us, we can really jazz you up pretty good.
Absolutely. So that's lspore@conciergebusinesssolutions.com. Let me fix this one. lspore@.
Can you fit yours on there if my big old long one's on there?
We're going to find out.
I should probably change that to something shorter. That's what we did with errands for you. It used to be executive-errands.com and we changed it to shorter.
Okay. So here we go.
Oh, there you go.
And so you can get a hold of either one of us. We'd love to help you. In the meantime, hey, Leslie, as always, it's been another great show. And we're talking about automation, things that truly, we see it every day, folks.
Oh, every day.
It's one of those things. I love this statement. If you don't reach out to us, reach out to someone who knows what they're doing in this same area and get some help, because I guarantee you, every business every business, Leslie's, mine, can still use that outside eye to say, you could do this more efficiently. And here's how you do it. You can automate this. Even though we are, eyeball deep in doing this every day for ourselves and for others, someone else with another set of eyes can come in and see things that we cannot see, because it's almost like, when you're in hot water, you don't realize how hot it is until someone says, holy crap, that's really hot water. You've gotten used to those conditions. This is chaotic. Well, I've gotten used to these conditions. And then Leslie comes and says, we can make this so much easier. Why don't we do this? And you're going, oh my gosh, you mean I can get my life back? Yes, you can. So it's Elsport at conciergebusinesssolutions.com or Jeff at swingpointmedia.com. We'd love to help you. Please drop us a line. Let us know. And Leslie, any last thoughts before we wrap up today on the Twisted, Bent, and Exhausted Entrepreneur Podcast?
I'm so tired already.